Hello, everyone. My name is Alejandro Aguilar. I go by Alex, and today I will be going over the life and philosophy of St. Augustine. St. Augustine, also called St. Augustine of Hippo, original Latin name Aurelius Augustinus, was born November 13, 354 AD, in Tagaste, Numidia, now Sauk Aras, Algeria. Aurelius Augustinus was the son of a pagan father, Patricius, and a Berber Christian mother, Monica. The family, which included two brothers and a sister, was respectable but somewhat impoverished. He was born after the death of Emperor Constantine, followed by the division of the Roman Empire into East and West. Constans, an Orthodox Catholic, ruled the West from 337 to 350 AD. Constantius II, an Arian who disputed the divinity of Christ, acquired the East. He became sole emperor in 350. Augustine was raised in Tagaste. He studied in Madaros from 366 to 370 AD. Determined to secure a future for his intelligent son, Patricius made great financial sacrifices to see that Augustine received a classical Latin education in the local school. Augustine delighted in Latin literature, but he detested the brutally enforced rote learning of arithmetic and Greek. Tagaste was a Roman colony in Berber North Africa. It is now called Souk Aras, as I mentioned before. It is famous worldwide because it was the birthplace of St. Augustine. Tagaste was securely Catholic by 354. Following the death of Constantius II in 361, Julian the Apostate ruled as Emperor of Rome until 363, fostering the dominance of paganism, even though freedom of worship for all religions had been proclaimed by Constantine in 313. Valentinian I succeeded Julian as emperor in the West until 378. He re-established toleration for Christian practice. He was the last emperor to subscribe to Arianism. Augustine showed early interest in school, and ultimately his parents saved money and invested to provide their son a successful Roman education, in the hope of guaranteeing him a prosperous future. He was sent to the nearby town of Madura, for further studies, but a lack of money forced him back home to Tagaste for a year, while his father tried to save more money for tuition. Augustine describes himself as a dissolute young man, unrestrained by his parents, who were more concerned with his success in school than his personal behavior. When Augustine was about 16, his parents sent him to the University of Carthage, the largest city in the region. There he studied literature and poetry. In preparation for a career as rhetor, a professional public speaker and teacher of rhetoric. Soon after Augustine came to Carthage, his father died, leaving Augustine as the nominal head of the family. In Carthage, he set up a household with a concubine, the mother of his son, Adeodatus, born about 372 AD. During this period, he read the book that began his spiritual journey, Cicero Hortensius. Augustine also encountered Manichaeism, the religion that dominated his life for the following decade. Augustine was attracted to Manichaeism's clear dividing line between good and evil, its highly and intellectual mythology, and its strict moral standards. After Augustine finished his studies, he briefly returned to Tagaste to teach, but soon went back to Carthage, where opportunities were more plentiful. Augustine became a successful public speaker and teacher. Encouraged by wealthy Manichae friends, he moved on to Rome in 383, hoping to advance his career. Rome proved to be disappointing, but Augustine's talents caught the eye of a Roman official, who recommended Augustine for the position of public orator for the imperial city of Milan. On reading Cicero's Hortensius, a strong desire for true wisdom was awakened in Augustine. This dialogue on the necessity of philosophical thinking inspired him to dedicate himself to the study of philosophy. He abandoned his career as a lawyer in the imperial civil service. The Hortensius counseled against the pursuit of sensual pleasure, as inimical to the discipline of thought. However, Augustine stayed with his lover and continued to be influenced by Manichaeism for the next 9 years. He began to question deeply the meaning of evil and the power of sin. Manichaeism was a pseudo Christian sect developed in the 3rd century AD by its founder Mani, who drew on elements of Babylonian, Judaic, and Christian sources. Mani, which is the name of an apostle who lived in Mesopotamia in the 240s, who taught a universal religion based on what we now call dualism. It was a Gnostic religious system based on fundamental concept of the duality of light and darkness. Goodness was thought to be manifested in what belongs to the realm of light, knowledge, spirit, and soul. Evil or darkness was viewed as connected to ignorance, matter, and the body. Redemption was to be achieved through a special intuitive knowledge and through moral practices that included abstinence from meat, wine, and sex for those who were fully initiated. Augustine was attracted to its dualistic concept of human nature because it allowed him to evade accepting full responsibility for his moral failures by taking refuge in the rational aspect of his being through a spurious detachment from the activities of his bodily self. He accepted the Manichaean rejection of the Old Testament, along with his highly critical approach to the New Testament. Augustine's belief in dualism was that of two supreme opposed powers, or gods, or sets of divine or demonic beings that caused the world to exist. Augustine became increasingly, after time, delusioned with, delusioned with Manichaean materialism and with the new academy skepticism about certitude that was fashionable at the time. This was a Greek school of thought that had its origin in pre-Socratic philosophy. It insisted that no certainty about truth can ever be attained, that there are only degrees of probability, and that all judgments are thereby relative. Augustine would write Contra Academicos in the fall of 387 to refute these ideas. The basic Christian principles his mother had taught him remain intact. Augustine started to feel his heart burning in his chest with the force that was placed upon him by the call to a life of renunciation. He retreated to the garden of the house, where he struggled with the demands of his body and wept over his failure to embrace the challenge of chastity with great tormented weeping. Hearing an unseen child say, "Pick up and read, pick up and read," Augustine opened the book of St. Paul, which he had been studying, to Romans 13. This book was the Bible, where he read not in riots and drunken parties, not in eroticism and in indecencies, not in strife and rivalry, but put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh and its lusts. This allowed Augustine to become more deeper in and interested in the Christian faith. St. Augustine was a long way from his hometown in northern Africa when Bishop Ambrose of Milan baptized him at dawn on Easter in the year 387. His baptism concluded in one of the best tales of the conversion ever. One of his famous expressions of this conversion or of this encounter is, "Late have I loved thee, O Lord, and behold, thou wast within me, what thou wast within, and I without, and there I sought thee. Thou wast with me when I was not with thee. Thou didst call and cry, and burst my deafness. Thou didst gleam and glow, and dispel my blindness. Thou didst touch me, and I burned for thy peace. For thyself thou hast made us, and restless our hearts until in thee they find their ease. Late have I loved thee, thou beauty ever old and ever new." The most lasting philosophical influence on Augustine is Neoplatonism. Augustine was familiar with Platonist views and adapted many of Plato's doctrines to Christianity. Christianity, the religion derived from Jesus Christ, based on the Bible as sacred scripture and professed by Eastern, Roman Catholic, and Protestant bodies. Conformity to the Christian religion. The Church at Rome, which would later develop into what we now know as Roman Catholicism, was started in the apostolic times, circa AD 30 to 95. Although we do not have records of the first Christian missionaries to Rome, it is obvious that a church existed there as the New Testament scriptures were being written. St. Paul himself wrote an epistle to the church at Rome, and the book of Acts records some of his dealings there. St. Clement of Rome, 35 to 99 AD, St. Ignatius of Antioch, 35 to 108 AD, and St. Irenaeus of Lyons, 130 to 202 AD, all speak as if St. Simon Peter ministered in Rome, serving as its first bishop. The term bishop is an English contraction of the biblical Greek word episkopos, often translated as overseer, a title given since the Middle Ages to certain saints whose writings or preaching is outstanding for guiding the faithful in all periods of the church's history. St. Augustine is considered a great doctor of the church. Being a doctor of the church represents lasting influence from the faith and beliefs of that individual, in this case, St. Augustine. Platonism. While there was a tradition of Plato's unwritten doctrines in antiquity, Platonism was largely based on a reading of the dialogues, then and later. For example, Plato had said that after death, the souls of those who loved the perfect eternal ideal forms would rise to heaven. There they would be united with those eternal forms that serve as models or patterns for material objects. Augustine adopted this idea but modified it. He argued that the souls that will rise to heaven are those that know and love the perfect, eternal God. Moreover, Augustine claimed that the eternal ideal forms exist in the mind of God. They are the ideas God has of the things he creates. Here's how he expresses this view. Ideas are certain original forms, or permanent and unchanging archetypes, of things that are not themselves formed by anything else. That is, they are eternal, and always exist and remain the same within the mind of God. They themselves do not come into being, nor do they decay, but everything is made by God according to these ideas. Everything that can or has come into being or decayed is formed according to these ideas. From Plato, Augustine also took the doctrine that the human self is a rational immaterial self. It is a soul that can think and reason, and is immaterial and immortal. And he borrowed too the idea that the rational self should rule over its appetites and emotions. Unlike Plato, however, Augustine emphasized the notion of will and not just that of reason. The will Augustine held is the mind's ability to choose between. Valentinian III became emperor in the West. He ruled until 455 AD. On September 26, 426 AD, Augustine nominated Heraclius to be his successor. In 429, Vandals, who were Iranian Christians led by Genseric, invaded Africa from Spain. In 430, the North African coastal provinces of Mauritania and Numidia were ravaged by Vandals, who raped, tortured, and pillaged, burning Catholic churches along the way. Catholic bishops and refugees fled to Hippo, which was a fortified city. On August 28th, Augustine died after suffering a fever for several days. He had prayed with his frightened flock for the gift of perseverance in the faith, by which the weak individual can come to share in the eternal stability of Christ. Bound as a father to his family, the Bishop of Hippo stood firm until the end, while all his world and life's work were destroyed in the violence around him. Though Hippo was partly burned, the library of Augustine was preserved from destruction. It contained much of what he felt and believed, and has been handed down to us as our priceless inheritance. It comprised some 100 books, 240 letters, and more than 500 sermons. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you very much.